Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to our study session. Here it is on the 5th of December. And I'll see if there's any public comment. Public comment? Okay. Let us proceed to our study session.
Okay, thank you, and good afternoon, everyone. Thank you very much for being here, to our Board of Education, our cabinet and leadership team, and to some staff that are here. This is kind of take two of a presentation that we've been talking about with the possibilities with early childhood and our preschool and our TK sections. Today we're going to walk through where we left off. We have reduced the number of options for you. And just as a reminder, just to step back, is this is that follow-up meeting. So the board had left us with wanting some additional information about costs, about ongoing costs, construction costs. We're going to be able to provide that information for you today. And just as a reminder, something that we're really proud about is that the work that we're doing is all aligned to our strategic planning. And so we've been talking about preschool for quite some time. There are conversations that we are going to be having with the city and the city staff after this meeting today. So to be clear, we'd love to get some direction from the board today after we answer some questions. And if you have additional questions, we will answer those to the best of our ability. And we will kick off the meeting with Mr. Guzman, Mr. Seaman.
Can I just make a comment before you say that? You talked about the thoughts and the considerations of financing and what have you. You left out the one thing that was thrown in as far as I'm concerned today, and that's the legal presentation. I did not hear anything about the legality and what we might be subjected to in terms of this plan. So I think that needs to be under consideration also.
Okay.
Okay. All right, so as you know, we have talked about this concept before of the early childhood, and it's part of our strategic plan in 22-23 school year. We also hosted one previous session on November 7th. That's a little bit of the background of what we've done thus far. As we look into so we essentially were able to collaborate to 3 options from the last time that we met and discussed this. So option number 1, we try to make it as simple as possible to make it very clear. So what happened in option 1 is you move all of TK to Hawthorne, meaning the TK at Horace Mann, TK that would have moved to Overdale and now stays at Hawthorne. It all moves to Hawthorne. And the BHUSD preschool and the city preschools also remain at Hawthorne. And this essentially is the idea of a beginning of an early childhood center. So that's the idea behind, or kind of one of the motivations per se of what option 1 would end up being. And I know that you've received several different iterations of what an early childhood center may look like. This definitely isn't the full totality of what that would look like, but it is a start on that road. In your different maps that you have, if you look at the first map, it kind of shows you what that cost looks like. So in order to do this, you have certain set costs. Some of them are ongoing, some of them are one-time. Your ongoing cost would probably be about $500,000, around $500,000, and your one-time cost about $100,000. So a total of about $650,000 would be the investment for fiscal year 24-25 to get this going. Ongoing costs of $553,000. The majority of that is encompassed by additional needs. So if you leave, the reason why it's that much is because if you have a whole site that you're now having to maintain, you need office staff, you need cafeteria staff, you need custodial staff, you need health clerks, you need and potentially a school site administrator. So that's where this is coming from as far as the ongoing costs. But it is a move towards this idea of an early childhood education center. So I don't know if there's anything else that anyone wants to add to option 1.
No, I just think from a sort of standpoint, I'm going to kind of speak on behalf of like Laura, me, and Maggie. if we do go with option one, it is because our mission and vision here truly is around creating a center for our students, our youngest students, meaning 2.9 up to 4.0, will have a BHUSD opportunity. So if we select option one, that means that we are committed to having conversations with the city of the opportunity of possibly taking over the preschool program, because that's truly what we're doing here is we are saying that we, through our strategic planning and through option one, want to create an early childhood center that is around our mission and vision of educational excellence under our supervision as administration. If not, I think from an service standpoint, we question sometimes too, why uproot then some of our programs from their home school to then just relocate them, right? So that's really why that point 3, I think from an instructional standpoint, is important to understand. Is if we're doing this over time, our goal is because we said we are going to do an ECC and we're going to spend the time, we are going to work with the city over the next year or so, have those discussions, and for the end goal of us taking over possibly a preschool with our TK and facilitating that program. I mean, so that's really what you want to take into consideration too, is that option one, if that's where we're going.
Thank you, Dustin. Appreciate that, Mr. Seaman. And
Can
just
I
in your,
ask-
sure.
Sorry, I just want to be sure, when we talk about the expenses,
Yes.
we are not like LAUSD or other school districts where we take on more kids, we get more money. These dollars would come out of the existing pot that we have.
It would come out of general fund dollars. Now, mind you though, if you do create an early childhood center and we go through the process, there was a presentation that was given a couple of months ago, and there's been several iterations of that Dustin's team has, that Mr. Seaman's team has put together. You would essentially then eventually charge like a fee for different types of services that you're going to provide, but there also would be those other conversations with the city. So it won't, I can't say that all of this amount would essentially be out of general fund, but right now as it stands, the way you have to budget things is I don't have a revenue source yet, an additional revenue source from the city, or an additional revenue source from students enrolling.
Yeah.
So technically this would come out of general fund dollars.
For the foreseeable
for the-
future.
Yes,
I got you.
unless there's other conversations later on, and
Yeah.
then that can all be mitigated, but as of now, that's where it would come from.
Okay,
Yeah,
just
and
making
just-
sure.
And just to piggyback, that would only be around the 2.9 to 3.9 student, because we had already opened up our doors to 4-year-olds.
Yeah.
In 22, that will always come out of our general fund,
Correct.
regardless of opening an ECC and having a tuition-based preschool program that's run by the district.
Yeah, but if I recall correctly, the tuition-based approach, the dollars and cents of it really only covered the cost of the in-class teachers and would not, so based on what's market,
Yeah.
and maybe we were a little bit less or a little bit more than
Yep.
the city or the Temple preschools and the other preschools that take them at 2. But for the most part, my understanding is that the bulk of this we would come out of pocket.
Totally, and that's why I wanted to reiterate that option one of it's the beginning of an early childhood center, because there's a lot, if we were to say today option one was the option we wanted to go with, we would have a lot more to do, because we'd have to have a conversation with the city. We'd also have to work with our union partners on, are our teachers going to be part of BHEA union,
Yeah.
which would cost us at a higher rate than, say, other school
Yes.
districts like Manhattan Beach, who actually kind of rent the preschool from a different entity, in
Yeah.
a sense. So we have to think through that, because that's going to determine the overall cost of the tuition in which we want to recruit, bring back.
As much as possible, which would be hard.
Absolutely.
But then also, am I to understand, I'm trying to understand personally, to me, we have a mission and a vision and only so much bandwidth. And so I'm just curious to know if we were to take on something like this now, where would that leave us with all the other stuff that we're trying to do? That's a concern for me. It's not that to me, I'm not giving an opinion yet, let's go
Yeah.
through it. But one big concern for me is that, it's vulgar to say to bite off more than you chew, that's not what we're doing. We're trying to do the best for the most, and I respect that, but I'm concerned that I would like to know what my colleagues and what everybody in this room thinks in terms of our aspirations for absenteeism, academics, all the other stuff that we're really trying to focus on. Is it responsible to move toward adding ECC onto our plate? That's a question.
Can I
Sure.
add something to that? I really like the idea of having an early education center. I know we talked about this, as you said previously. And we talked about the possibility that the district could take it over. And I think that what you're saying about how that vision could be, I think it makes a lot of sense. My concern is right now is, and as we had talked about it previously on the strategic plan, was about really kind of doing an investigation even with outreach to the community in terms of what is the interest for wanting to be at a dedicated preschool, at, what type of preschool are people looking for, 5 days a week, 3 days a week, morning, afternoon, really kind of understanding what the true demand is, and also working with the city in terms of their bandwidth. And also reaching out to the families as well for daycare. We really started this with daycare preschool. We hadn't previously talked about TK until just the last meeting. But, when we talked about this on the strategic plan, it was about a dedicated preschool daycare as the starting place. But the first place we have to really start, in my opinion, is we really need to have outreach to the community. We need to understand the demand. We need to understand a pro forma, how would we fund it? What does that look like? What is the cost for the teachers? All the issues that you're bringing up are really valid issues, and I think we have to really go into that and really understand that before we jump to even starting the beginning of an early education center. It seems
Yeah.
half-baked to me to jump in right now. We
And I
really
think
should
that-
be doing that research and having all those different elements discussed. We talked about it in the sense of a business plan, really understanding all of those pieces, and we have to have community outreach for that as well. And so to me, it just seems like this is a great idea to continue to pursue, but it's too early to make that move for this fall. I also feel like what Judy's kind of alluding to is we have a huge move coming up, which is El Rodeo, which the community and our school district has been waiting for. And that's going to be a huge move. And we want to do it really well, and we want it to be a really positive, joyful experience for everybody. And I think that really keeping the focus on making that a really smooth transition, making sure all the systems are in place, and we're able to focus on our strategic plan and our goals come this summer, instead of having oh my gosh, we're going to move all this and we're going to start a preschool and we're going to do all these things at the same time. I think we'll lose because we just don't have it all laid out that way. I think our focus should really be about moving El Rodeo and really letting everyone in the community see what a success that's going to be and how smooth that transition can be. That's really my opinion about in terms of starting this as a preschool now.
I think that's really important to state, and I do think there's a couple of other. So if we go over the other options, I think there's a way of doing both. In regards to obviously timed in different intervals, but in different interval times. But if we go to option number 2 here, this one. Just a brief summary of what it looks like. Essentially, it's Hawthorne TK remains at Hawthorne, Horace Mann TK remains at Horace Mann, and just essentially the BHUSD preschool and the city preschools remain at Hawthorne. And so there's more than enough space for this to happen as well in your map. As you can see, we kind of color coordinated where that would all go, but that would be option 2. It's very similar to option 1, and the cost though, if we were to do that, the one-time costs would be about $75,000 just to retrofit some things, and to be clear, that's an estimate, right? It doesn't mean it's going to be that much. It may or may not. The total ongoing would be essentially less. It would be about $400,000, because at that point it would be not as many sections at Hawthorne, and so it would be less. So the total ongoing would be about $400,000 for a total of about $478,000 of investment in 24-25. Of that, 400,000 is essentially ongoing. That's option number 2.
What's the basis for this option for treating Horseman and Hawthorne differently?
This is just an option that was fleshed out from our previous conversation, is not uprooting, say, Horseman, because the question is, El Rodeo was a facility that was designed and created pre-TK, UTK. And so as that was being completed, UTK was never part of the conversation until the governor opened it up. And then we, as a leadership team in Board of Education, said, oh, instead of waiting till 2025, which we could have, like many school districts have, we accelerated the timeline and opened up our doors to all 4-year-olds, and we have for the last 2 years. So because of that, opening that up, that's why we're having this conversation. So one of the options was leaving Horseman TK there.
And then leaving Hawthorne, I get you,
Yeah.
and just doing the shift partial.
Right.
Which
And
would
that way
then
it satisfies-
prevent us, I apologize.
No, go ahead.
It would prevent us from doing any sort of changes to ER, again,
TK?
meaning no changes to the room configurations, no additional
construction.
construction to ER.
Are
Yep.
you saying that right now El Rodeo is not prepared to have TK?
No, it is. It's the preschool piece that
Right.
we're here because of
So-
preschool,
Got it.
right?
So TK can stay
Yeah.
with El Rodeo and at Horace Mann.
Correct.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, we have an option,
And
we have
that
an
would be my
option.
Yeah.
suggestion,
If we could get to
because
that-
we have room
Wait,
for
there
this
she
school.
wants
If we could get to that
Yeah.
next one,
Yeah.
but just to clarify, option
Thank you.
2,
Yeah.
was that, and it satisfies that legal requirement of having the peers that, for our preschool sped time. That's why, that's the other part of the option 2.
Roger,
Now,
why
option
are there
3.
no administrators on option 2?
Because it's less sections, so we feel like we can potentially move some things around and not necessarily have an administrator for that. In option 1, you had all the TK sections from Horace Mann coming over as well, so it's a much bigger operation.
And,
Well, it's 3.
but no, it's in option 1, we're considering an ECC, which is who's collecting tuition, who's doing the daily administration, and who's disciplined and all those types of things, versus in option 2, we're not moving towards an ECC because we have half of our early childhood sitting at Horace Mann. And so what we're doing is just kind of, whether we take ER administration and kind of, because they could be between the 2 schools in 10 minutes, whatever,
Okay.
I'm on campus. I mean, it's
That's
not,
essentially
we're not
three
It
moving.
seems only the difference of 3 TK classrooms.
Yes.
I'm-
Gets the administration or doesn't get the administration.
No, it's the preschool that gets the administration or doesn't get the administration. In
Is
option
it-
1, we're talking about building out an early childhood center where we're taking,
I got that, but don't we have preschool in option 2?
But we're not.
But we're
running
not-
that.
we're not-
The city's running that.
one class.
we're
One
not,
class,
yeah,
right.
option 2, we're not saying,
The BHUSD preschool.
Yeah,
So
because-
so you're considering in option 1, it's the two extra preschools that we're taking from the city and all of our TK. That's why.
correct, down the road, this administrator is not only.
So that's
facil-
about 5, difference of
And our
5 classrooms, so
Yeah.
that's considerable. Thank you.
And then option 3, so option 3 essentially would have the BHUSD preschool, our preschool, move to Horace Mann. Both of the city preschools would move to Horace Mann. Hawthorne TK would move to El Rodeo as was scheduled. Horace Mann, TK stays at Horace Mann, so we would have moved that. And the only thing there is we would have to make some considerations in the future for a more robust play structure, but in the meantime, we can definitely, in the cost analysis, we added a temporary play area, and then we would have to retrofit some of the site to standards as well. So all in all, that would only have a one-time cost of about, in the high end, I would say about $100,000. This doesn't touch the library, so if you look at your map, we met with, internally with our staff, and it looks like we can fit the different sections coming over from Hawthorne in here, the preschool and the city preschools. They would fit in classrooms here. What you're seeing in front of you is not the final layout, by the way. It's just to show that we can definitely do it. And in regards to space, if you were to look at the next page of your handout, we have some vacant classrooms at Horace Mann. So there's sufficient classrooms there for growth or for moving things if we have to. So the items in yellow in that next page shows you the vacant rooms at Horace Mann. And in the other map, it shows you the vacant rooms at El Rodeo. So option 3 would essentially, just to recap again, it would have us moving the BHUSD sped preschool to Horace Mann, the city, 2 sections of the city preschool to Horace Mann as well. Hawthorne would now move to El Rodeo, the TK at Hawthorne would move to El Rodeo. Horace Mann TK stays at Horace Mann. And again, we would just eventually have to do some work on doing a play structure, a more adequate play structure.
And
But
can I-
long term.
Can I just thank, because Ms. Kaber is here and Mr. Bugby, and I just want to thank them for meeting with us as well, because we really went over this, because we wanted to show you that, there's always times in the summer where there's a class maximum that is met, and we have to open up that extra section. So that's why, if you're wondering why we showed you a little bit more of what's available, is just because those sections do sometimes happen when somebody moves in. So there's, we wanted to make sure that we had more than enough room to show you and share with you. And I just wanted to say thank you, because you guys took a lot of time out to plan with us.
But are we taking away
Can I
something
ask-
from the families with option 3? Because from what I can tell, option 3, by moving the city preschool classes to Horace Mann, A, we're maxing out Horace Mann's facilities, and B, we're taking away the city's opportunity to create their own early childhood development center. And that's a concern for me, because then there will be no mommy and me, we're gonna relocate them. And I think that we should consider a 4th option, personally, which would be BHUSD preschool moves to Horace Mann, city preschool stays at Hawthorne, Hawthorne TK moves to El Rodeo, Horace Mann TK stays at Horace Mann, and this is the beginning of a city early childhood development center that includes daycare and a more robust program. And my understanding is that the city preschool classes are already pivoting, and they're already starting to take some kids, if possible, at 2.5 years, whereas before they had like a 3-year minimum. And then they've been like, as universal TK has expanded, they've been nudging down towards 2.9, and now they're nudging down towards 2.6. So I'm just really concerned about throwing the baby out with the bathwater with option 3. And I would like to know if anyone is open to option 4.
Well, let me,
Well,
can I just
just
make a
real
question?
quickly,
Wait, I just really want a question. You're talking about the, our special ed class on Plan 3. Are you referring to the K4 prime special ed class there? That's not it. So I don't see that on, am I?
It's there.
That's
It's
prime.
A109
Yeah. Oh.
on option number 3.
Oh, that's the preschool,
That would be the preschool class.
that doesn't say the special ed one though, does
So
it?
that's the one though.
Yeah, but that would be-
That's-
Yeah,
We're
but-
not, we're not supposed to write that on there.
Oh, okay, I'm sorry.
Okay,
Okay,
so that's
but
the
that- that's my
BHUSD preschool
understanding.
class.
So we do have, there's,
We have space
okay,
there.
fine, I just
So
wondered about
just to
that.
clarify though,
Can I say one thing,
with,
Mr. Guzman?
yes,
Just before we move,
Go ahead.
it's directly responsive to Mrs. Manicherry's suggestion. The only problem in that suggestion, Mrs. Manicherry, is that then we lose the same age
Right, I was gonna say.
same age
Right.
peers for the
So why don't we
BHUSD
split,
class.
why don't we split our BHUSD preschool class in 2? And do the younger kids with Hawthorne's preschool class and move the older kids? I'm just concerned because I just had a student go through the city preschool program, and there were dozens of times where I heard that the 2 city preschool programs are interacting. I did not hear about the city preschool program interacting with our BHUSD program one time. So is that really happening?
It is, and it's also written into the students' IEPs. So we're working with the city to work on the schedules and the access, because it has to be a meaningful interaction. But yes, it is
Don't they
also-
use the playground at the same, excuse me, don't they
They
use the
do.
they work together on the playground, right? They have playground time
Do you
together.
need
just-
both preschool, city preschools to move, or just one to meet that,
One
the
class
IEP?
would be sufficient.
Right.
well, the thing,
Remember, I talked about it the last time, saying that makes it scheduling a little harder, but yes, that would give access.
So
So
the
if we
thing
move
about-
one preschool, does it make a difference on the impact from a construction standpoint and what you
no,
need to
so,
do?
so with option 3, we don't have construction. And so, and there's sufficient
But we do though, so remember you guys, it was a year one Band-Aid, really. If I just wanna be totally transparent, because I don't wanna
Please.
be back here again in a year, is that in option 3 though, I think we always want to look at that library and probably will always want to look at, because we knew we couldn't get it into this DSA round this year. We could place these students into these current options definitely for a year. But we also are not 100% sure that the city would get approval by coming over to Horace Mann either in looking at those facilities for the rooms that we're providing them either. So I mean, that we have to take that into consideration into option 3 is we then have to move into conversations with the city to make sure that the rooms that we have selected for them do meet their authorization for them to move, which is fine, it's part of our GPA.
For one or two of their classes.
For 1 or 2 of their classes, and then 2, just like reconfiguration or any sort of move, I mean, Mr. Marcus, we've moved classrooms how many times? You gotta live in it, right? And so I don't want us to not think in option 3, sorry Raphael, that down the road that we still wouldn't want to explore splitting that library in half, submitting now to DSA and giving then the city their own little wing of entrance, exit, and then it removes them off of our immediate campus a little bit more, similar to what they're doing. You know what I'm saying? And then that way it doesn't feel the strain.
Are you talking about A107?
Yeah, so A107, you split that into 2. That was our original really want, but we know that we're up against construction and down the road.
But can
And we
I
can't
ask
really-
a question? Like, if you move the 2 preschool, say you move just the SPED class and 1 or 2 preschools, and at the same time, the city then uses Hawthorne to make a more dedicated preschool daycare place. Down the road, instead of trying to expand it there, might we, once, in terms of the longer term vision of an ECC, the longer term vision maybe should be to have our preschool program there. So they may actually not be moving into the library, they would be moving to Hawthorne, because down the road, if we do all of this work and we find that that's going to make sense for us as a district, they may be here for a year or 2 or whatever that is, 3 years, and then they may move to Hawthorne as that early education center that the district takes over if, once we find out, go through that whole process, if that's feasible and it's something that we want to do. So I think it's really, we don't know.
Yeah.
It may be there, but ideally, we talked about it being potentially at Hawthorne.
Yeah,
And-
and
and
Hawthorne
just-
has a play
yeah.
structure.
And
and
that's
everything.
why-
Yeah, exactly.
So I
Very
think
strong
we're better off
facility.
This
moving
doesn't-
them now and moving 1 class and letting the city build the preschool program at Hawthorne for now while we do the research and the due diligence that we need to do about an early education center, which is what we talked about, talking to the community, understanding the need, doing the pro formas, what is it gonna cost, really understanding what that looks like for us as a district. And then we would know whether that's going to happen, and we'll take it from that step. But for right now, this is the path of least resistance, and it meets the needs, and it allows us more options in the future without committing to changing these other things, which we may not want to later.
I think the other thing that option 3 allows us is the flexibility in launching the demographic studies and seeing actually what happens with enrollment.
Yeah,
Because that's really gonna be what determines where all this goes, because
Right.
we're either gonna have less and less space at Horseman and El Rodeo, or more space.
Right, so
So,
that,
and I think we
and we
need
don't
the
have
chance-
those answers.
We
So-
need the chance to do that and plan for what happens if we need more space.
Right.
And we always know that we'll have Hawthorne as an option.
Right.
It's simply to move, because our dedication through the JPA is 2 classrooms for preschool. That's what we have to give them, right?
Right.
So it allows us the options that if it gets to that and we see our enrollment increasing, we can move our preschool class, their preschool class, and if we decide our TK over to Hawthorne, we know we have the space
But also,
for it.
Noah, they may decide to only put 1 there if they have the opportunity to have more at Hawthorne. So it is part of the JPA, but it's not set in stone.
No, that's
based on how
exactly
we
right.
move it.
I
So
don't
they-
I don't
so-
see them wanting to put a lone class at Hawthorne, though. I don't think.
No,
they're
but what
gonna
I'm
want
saying,
to.
they may add 4 more classes
Yeah,
there. So in
that's-
which case,
that's a
they may
different
only
story.
want to have one move
And,
to spec.
and that's the,
And
and
then
that's the
have
point is.
5 classes at Hawthorne.
And that's the point, you know, with option 3, again, it's kind of, it doesn't have to stay permanently that way, right? You can, like you were saying earlier, you know, some people can, I mean, in the future, we can move some things around. Hawthorne would be a prime space to do so. But as far as the path of least resistance, option 3 would be very, we'd have to do a couple of things here and there, but it wouldn't be as intensive with construction. To Dustin's point, if we do want to eventually do something with the library, we can. We don't have to. It just
just
gives us
premature.
more time.
Right.
The thing about the library situation, we would have to go to DSA. That takes you know, a lot longer. We wouldn't be able to get it done by August.
Well,
But
premature
it's probably
because
not.
I
we
would
don't
only
even
think
know
of
that
the
we wanna do
library if Hawthorne was not gonna be an option for
Yeah.
anybody.
Right.
I wouldn't invest in it.
Right.
Once,
Me neither.
once you start
Furthermore,
working on that
I
Horseman
really believe
library,
that,
and I hope there's a place to move the library, by the way, I hope we.
There
that
is,
far.
yeah.
Okay.
No, we're not, yeah.
There's,
leave
can I,
it.
can I also say too that, as we begin meeting with the city to talk to them about what their needs are, you know, this option doesn't close Hawthorne to the possibility of, you know, their additional, if they wanna
Right.
put additional
Of
classes there.
course.
So and I think that they would probably want that, seeing as though we have people that live right there in the, you know, current Hawthorne attendance area
Yeah.
that would utilize a preschool there.
That's gonna be
Not
a
only
big
that, but they
loss.
can
also start
That's
to
gonna be
think
a
of-
loss for the families to have to go
But
to
the city can
Horseman
use
for
Which
their
is why I
schools.
think, you
I
know,
think we really need to
I
talk
think
to
that
the
they will
city.
open that, and so
Yeah.
that we have a meeting with them next week to start talking
Thank
about
I
that.
mean,
you.
I also think it's really, like, this is, to me, it's the interim step until we have more information and we have done the work that we need to do to make a
Yep.
better long-term decision. And this is a decision that it's easier on everybody from an operational standpoint, from the family standpoint. Like, the families are not gonna be happy about that even the conversation about TK being at Hawthorne is a much hotter topic that, I mean,
It is.
I'm glad that we've, for the most part, taken that off the table. I think really what we're talking about is, the only question is whether we have 1 or 2 preschools move with this sped class to Horace Mann.
You know-
And the rest is as we had planned it a few months ago.
What, can I say?
Hawthorne moves to El Rodeo,
This is
Horace Mann
not-
stays as it is,
not
and
set in
preschool moves
stone.
there.
I think this gives us a chance to feel our way forward and see where we can go from here. So the idea that we're gonna be, I mean, I've been thinking about this move to El Rodeo, and, you know, it was supposed to happen 2.5 years ago, and now it's 5 years later, and the anticipation of the community, that this is gonna be the biggest thing that's, I mean, since sliced bread practically, and to do other things at this very time, I think will take away when, we're not sure. And I think that if the community knows that there will be input and so on, and this is not set in stone, this is a temporary situation based on this decision we make, that I think that we're better off in that particular approach to this whole thing.
I wanted to ask,
I agree.
as we move into, thank you, Rochelle, this conversation about Horseman, because I'm looking at the 2 maps, Raphael. We're in the proposed option 3, where is kindergarten?
Kindergarten moves into B1, where the first grade, so currently we have 4 first grade. We would move the 3 kinder into first, we would move first over into second, second into third. I mean, not into third, sorry. Third's on the second floor of building A. But we would basically wrap them around on the first floor of B
So
building.
you're gonna,
Yeah.
Which one is
Okay.
building B, the one upstairs?
so
It is on your page, Horseman Building B first floor. Yep.
Where-
So you'll see there's additional vacant
Horace Mann,
classrooms.
second
Yeah.
floor?
Correct.
Okay.
Where was kindergarten? I mean,
And are you
where's
gonna, would it
kindergarten
stay
today?
like a
In
dedicated
building
area?
On the
Where?
first floor.
All K
Basically
together?
where the
Yeah.
preschool
Yes,
classes
because of the
are slotted,
restrooms.
some of
We
those
wanna
make sure they have
areas.
access.
And do you have the restrooms in the B building for
Yes,
kids?
we have the restroom
All of
department
these
there.
are.
Yeah,
are
and
And
just-
where would the
Yeah,
play, the
we
new,
have-
the additional play structure go?
So
Yeah.
initially,
Because
the
we
play
have
structure would
4
be
kindergarten.
most likely,
So you wanna move.
you know,
all
we
4
probably have to go
together.
with some, like,
Yeah.
soft play
So
So
structure.
that makes 4.
And then in the
empty
future,
spaces.
as we start having these conversations, we could look into a bigger structure somewhere and look at the best space. But for now, you would probably wanna do something soft that's easily movable, that we can move around and.
Is that space big enough, should they wanna put 2 preschool there? I mean, assuming the city, we decide to go with 2 of the
This
preschools.
option 3 has 2 preschools from the city. So option 3 is moving everyone, you know.
No, I understand that, no, I'm talking about, is the play area large enough for the students that we might expect there in terms of safety?
Yes, we would make sure that the play area would be large enough for them and purchase. That's why there's a one-time cost of there for a temporary play area, and then we'd have to do some work around to make sure that there's a safety component to all of it.
Out of curiosity, this patio area you're talking about right now, that's the area that we were just talking about recently to cover, right? And that's the area along Hamel.
Yes, that would be one of the areas that we would consider.
Where would the play area for the preschool be then in relationship to this map?
The temporary play area.
So, that's what, so one scenario would be that it could be where the patio section is, where they could walk over there. We can also explore other areas around the campus. We don't have an exact answer yet for that, but we have sufficient space to add that.
Okay.
What is the 50,000 for construction, if you're saying that these are already?
It's just, I don't want to, as we start moving, sometimes things happen and we need to, just the fact of moving and moving
It's
things
like a
around.
moving cost.
Yeah, it's just, I wanted to put something in there. I don't wanna come back to the board and say, by the way,
Incidentals.
Yeah,
Right.
it will most likely not be 100,000,
You're
but
not retrofitting bathrooms?
yes.
Who's meeting with the city in this regard next week? Is it you,
So,
Dr. Bregman?
yes, it'll be myself, and I believe that it's gonna be Mr. Guzman, Ms. Collins Williams, Mr. Seaman, Ms. Mayberry, and myself.
I think it's really
Nancy and
important
Patty.
to make sure that there are preschool options for the El Rodeo Hawthorne families at Hawthorne. I think in terms of traffic and in terms of, I just think right now what we experience at Hawthorne between 8 and 9 a.m., it's quite an experience to have the 9 a.m. drop off for the preschoolers, which is flowing down and impacting us starting from 8:15 a.m. And I foresee that happening for you, Mr. Bugby, so that's definitely an operational concern for me. But then to have parents from the Hawthorne or El Rodeo area driving to Horace Mann every day,
Yep.
I think it's something that's gonna be doing a disservice to our community, and I would just ask you to please encourage and request that the city backfill and add more, and if they are gonna add more, I'd be interested to know about it.
Yeah, we'd love for them to
Please.
be able to do that,
Yeah.
and I think that it's important to look at attendance centers, because we want to be as convenient as possible, so, we're gonna have that discussion with them, if Hawthorne's a better fit, or having two sections, I think that they would probably request, I'm just guessing, without having the conversation yet, just knowing the enrollment that we have.
Yeah, there's a
that-
list.
That we're going to have people, and they're going to want to place students at Hawthorne, so.
There's a wait
I mean,
list.
yeah,
Of course,
so,
because it's secure and it's in a great neighborhood.
but I know it's a benefit certainly for, our Horace Mann families as well, that
Yeah.
have not had the opportunity, because they've been driving to Hawthorne,
Yeah, so if we could
yeah, I
supply
mean,
it for everybody.
yeah.
And then also if we have more classes, then these would feed into the district more and
Right.
better,
That's always been the thing.
which has always been the thing, and
Yeah.
so,
I think we're less
And
likely
also
to
the
lose them to
possibility
the
of
private
having
Yes.
school.
For the city.
Yes, that's on our
Yeah.
list to talk
Right.
to them about.
But
What's that?
I do, the possibility for the city to also offer daycare there. I think it's really important that we also have community outreach. We cannot do this in a vacuum without having community outreach around those things.
But Mary, when you say daycare, are you saying, we will offer it, but are you saying administratively we
I'm not
would-
saying that we as a district would offer it.
Okay.
I'm saying that the city
Could
could offer
make use of
daycare at our Hawthorne
Yeah,
facility.
Because I mean, the way I see it is I just see, daycare and early preschool matters, a completely different entity than what the incredible dictates that we have as a school district.
Right,
I'm
but
just
it
saying.
would be run by the city.
I know, I'm just saying, I mean, I've had discussions just sort of casually with Julian Gold about, just the concept of some of the needs of the very littles and what daycare entails, right?
Mhm.
And then the whole entity of schooling and academic matters, starting when they're, let's say, toilet trained. And it's easy these days for people to blend the two. And I just personally want to be careful that we keep looking at what the incredible charge for all of us as a school district, and that hopefully we don't get too much into the woods with the very little needs of daycare and all, because I think it could potentially dilute some of the incredible things that we're doing on an academic level.
I don't think anybody's
I
considering
just
that.
don't, I
I don't
don't
think
wanna
anyone's
become
considering
like
the district getting
daycare.
into daycare business.
Yeah, I'm just saying, it happens, and it's just a different entity, both equally important, but I don't.
But we wouldn't be running programs at Hawthorne, it would
So,
be run by the city.
I wanted to confirm a couple of things. In the proposed option 3, both Horseman and El Rodeo next year would have 3 TK and 4K. Is that the concept? Okay.
Wait.
Would have what, oh, no, I didn't.
3 TK
Three
and
T-
4K.
We have space for them, we don't know that they'll fill.
Understood.
Yeah,
Understood. You
yeah.
have it planned.
It was like, don't.
And
yes.
with both of those, with your current planning, there are still vacant classrooms on both sites to expand.
Yes.
Even though our demographic studies are saying otherwise, we'll see what happens. Yes.
That's correct.
Okay, so, because as I make this decision, I want to make sure we keep that in mind. I don't want to get locked up and that we can't take any more kids, or kids wanting to enroll in Horseman are going to be forced to go to El Rodeo, or vice versa, geographically, because we didn't think it through. So I just wanted to make sure.
And to clarify, like, there's no more rooms or even an additional, if we have 7 TK kinder classes,
Right.
that's it at El Rodeo.
Understood.
Well, that should also shed light on our grandparent permit conversation that's coming up.
And how many currently do you have in your
7 classes of
your how many currently are in your TK class?
the full, 20 in each class.
So you have 60 TK.
Wait, I can't hear you,
So
Sarah.
you could take, so we could take up to 20.
What did you say?
If they all go into kindergarten next year, you could take one more class worth, because you have 4 Ks. Is that traditionally really how it falls? You would go have, like, how many kindergartners do you usually enroll?
We've been vacillating between 3 and 4 sections over the
Okay.
last 3 or 4 years.
But not between 4 and 5 sections?
No, we haven't gone up to 5 at any of those.
Okay. So
But
we-
remember, we also have a bubble that's moving through, and they are now 5th graders, so then we take some of those teachers and reassign them if need be. Like, that's
Understood.
how we,
Out of
Understood.
curiosity,
We rotate.
TK classes are smaller than the kindergarten classes.
by 3 students, yes, Mrs. Marcus.
20.
So there's that overflow of, that there's not as many students being fed into the kindergarten as are coming out of TK.
Right, because with the new mandate, the sections, we used to run the sections at 21, but with the new mandate, we have to run them at 20.
You're talking about the kindergarten now.
TK, and then kindergarten is 23.
We built it off of the
Max.
original assumption of the initial bill
Yes.
too. It was 1 to 10.
Yes.
And in the new governor's budget, and I'm just gonna be that person that says it out loud,
Say-
that it's 1 to 12.
Yeah.
And so we may
Walk
get
it
to a
back.
position where
We can go back to
our
where we were.
TK would align with our kinder of 1 to 23.
Okay.
Oh, I
Well,
mean,
it's-
within another dollar,
It's
yeah.
good to know we have the wiggle room,
Yeah.
and that's comfortable.
Yeah, that's 92 kindergartners
Yep.
actually at max. That's a
Yep.
lot,
That's a lot of kids.
so,
But we've been pretty close at those sites.
okay.
Laura, for the special ed preschool, how many kids, how many students now in the special ed
We
preschool?
have 9.
Okay, so is it possible that there would be a year where there would be fewer, where there'd be 3? I mean,
Or none,
or none? I'm not saying I wish, I'm just saying, I'm
Or more.
wondering,
or
because.
more.
It's usually
Or
more.
12.
It's
Usually
usually
more,
actually
right?
2 sections, right? 2 sections in
Yeah,
that.
we used to have more
18,
sections,
yep.
and we've had up to 3 classes.
Yeah.
Of special ed
Education
preschool.
students.
So how do you explain that that has diminished since I see it? It's like exploding all over. People are now aware they can identify their little ones as,
Just, there are other options, and sometimes parents choose not to enroll students, or they come only for related services, but they don't come for school time, instructional time.
which is for speech or
Right,
something like
speech,
that.
OT, all those things. Also, we've received fewer referrals from regional center.
Fewer, okay,
Fewer, but the ones we received have been very
involved.
involved. So, but it varies. I mean, last year we had 2 teachers in the classroom because we had so many kids.
And
So
this year it's 1.
we are down to 1, but we have a good group, and then at one point in the day when everyone's there, because we have an overlap time, and then it's really busy.
Got you.
And those kids ostensibly are pretty impacted if they're so young and they're already, they have a disability. What happens to them when they go to kindergarten? Are most of them going to general education kindergarten, or are they going to the prime
Prime.
class? So
Prime.
most of them are going to prime, so that's a pretty direct,
So it varies by year. We've
Yeah.
had years where a lot of them go to some of them go to TK, some of them go to kindergarten, some of them go to STC, some of them go to RC or SAI intensive or or what Wesley like to call it now since we got rid of those terms. Some of them go to prime. It really just depends on their needs. But it's looking like the majority of the students that we have currently will be going towards the prime.
So
Okay, and you do feel that next year the special ed preschool will continue to be at least 9 or so?
Oh,
Okay.
we get a steady flow,
Okay,
but
we
it's
do.
not like,
Right.
here's 12 kids.
Right, because I would hate to base some of our assumptions on movement and,
It's always-
see if
it's
it's
always a
going to
need.
shrink, but it doesn't sound like it's going
It's always a
anywhere.
need.
Okay.
What's gonna happen since I get to tell my story is we're gonna need a second prime class.
is
And
it,
we're looking at that now. I can absorb it with
From where
current
to
staff.
put the preschoolers when they move ahead, and then that's gonna get bigger and bigger.
Well, and also our instructional range is really large.
Mm.
And so we need to look at
dividing it up?
how
Differentiating the instruction.
So
put our
is it,
students together instructionally, group them instructionally so that we can maximize our resources. But I don't need a second teacher to do it, I just have to have the space. I can rearrange certain staff members to do so.
and then is it better for those students to be at Horace Mann for preschool and then have that continuity of staying at that site for their
So-
prime class?
So the short answer to your question is yes, but what I'm looking at is having a class at each site. So there'll be a prime class at Horace Mann, and there'll also be one at El Rodeo.
Okay.
Hawthorne / El Rodeo. There's actually probably the second class we're looking at opening second semester this year.
How would you,
after winter break.
How will you differentiate between which students would be Horace Mann prime candidates versus which would be El Rodeo prime candidates, or
Based on their
Hawthorne?
levels of performance and the needs.
So you'll be group subdividing them?
Then you have.
Well, it'll be based on the aspects of the components of the program based on the students' needs.
Okay.
But just to come back to the slide, so, and you've all touched on the future considerations of long-term costs. We have to look at those costs of any option that we do. Construction and division of the Early Childhood Center, you guys all discussed that already. But that is pretty much it. You know, we would just like to kind of have an idea of what the board would like. I'll turn it back to you, Dr. Craigie.
Yeah, I just want to say, thank you for the conversation. I mean, I think what really came to realization for myself was, to be really intentional about having the Early Childhood Center.
Mhm.
And, I think after conversations with Mr. Seaman and Ms. Mayberry and Ms. Collins-Williams, that it's, just to have a TK section at Hawthorne, along with a preschool, really doesn't do anything for an ECC. It's the planning that's going to need to take place with the city. And so I appreciate having those conversations because that, I think, helped kind of ground us a little bit. Like, to do this, let's do it right. And the community outreach piece, I think, is really important. And so that's on our agenda to speak with the city. But since we have the opportunity, this could have been a completely different conversation if we didn't have the space. But, spending hours and hours looking to see the possibilities on space, which I really appreciate that our team did, so that we know that it's possible. And I think that gives us a little bit of time. Let's dream, and let's dream big, but let's do it the right way.
This is
So-
really, really helpful. I want to thank you all for your time on this. I could not have asked for more personally in terms of financial, spatial, and organization with the summary on each one. So I thank you because I don't feel like I would be as comfortable as I am without your legwork. So really, thank you so much. My only request, Dr. Breggy,
Yes.
is please, if you can please facilitate a couple of new or the current ones staying, city preschool classes
Right.
at Hawthorne. I think that it would serve our community really well, and I think that it would be very consistent and helpful for our vision and our aspiration to maintain a flow of students. The kids that go to the privates, whether it's the Temple or elsewhere,
Yep.
we just lose them. And this would be a really good thing for us. If, ultimately, it would be the best of both worlds to have preschool from the city at Horace Mann and at Hawthorne.
I remember
Agreed.
one thing that was limiting was that the space at Hawthorne was limited, always, we could never have more than the two. And now with that being open, the city can really maximize the space.
Yeah. Please encourage them to do so.
Well, and they are aware of that, and they've been dreaming about that,
Okay.
because, the problems that we get into is the more kids that we have at Horace Mann and El Rodeo is the after-school programming that we want to start earlier, and this is kind of a conversation for another study session, but having that space available at Hawthorne is hopefully, going to look very attractive to the city to do some things there, because we don't have the storage available, we don't have a lot of the things that they need, just administratively to run these programs. They're basically on a little cart in a little box that they,
Carry around, yeah.
So I know that this is, kind of a blank canvas for them, and they're very excited to have the conversation. It's great real estate for them to look at future programming.
I would also
So-
say, Michael, that we, sorry, Noah, that when we talked about it before, we also talked about the possibility that even, when we talk about expanding to after-school programming at Hawthorne, that the possibility of even having like a school shuttle that could take the kids
100%.
from BV or Horace Mann after school to Hawthorne for those after-school programs. So
Yep.
then the parents can pick them up in one place, and if it's just a BV transportation, it could be safe, and parents don't have to worry about picking up the kids and getting them to Hawthorne for those programs.
Yeah, and I also think that what's important is, again, when you have that critical mass, it's better for their staffing, but it's also better for the variety of programming that they can have.
Yeah.
Where they sometimes struggle when there's, 6 kids here at one school, 5 at another, and so this will help with a more robust programming option for the city to have.
Right.
So I was hoping at this point to have a little more information from the city about what their plans are for the future in the sense of this early childhood education. And it doesn't seem that that is.
Well, it sounds like next week.
I think you'll get that
Well,
information
it sounds like
next
they're
week.
just starting the conversation.
Yeah, can I just answer that, because I think that's fair to ask that, but I think it's also that we wanted to be really careful and not be presumptuous.
Right.
And lead the city into a direction that we were still kind of getting to, so I wanted to be careful of that, but we did set up that meeting so that it's next week, so that we can go there, and it's not one person that can answer that question.
I'm glad that our decision today, and I think I'll speak for the board, that we're towards option 3,
Yeah.
correct, everybody? Okay.
Towards.
I like
So
the
you
idea.
have your
With
direction.
a Hawthorne twist,
Yeah.
with some
Right,
sort of.
and I
Please.
understand.
I think it
yes.
would be really good for us.
Well, one preschool could stay at Hawthorne.
But that's what I wanted
Yeah, so
clarification on is
Yeah.
What it does is
Mary's-
it gives the city options.
Right.
So we're not making any final decisions for them. They'll be able to make more decisions than they previously had. They'll have more options. So I think that's pretty clear.
Yes.
As far as the
Very
board, so
clear.
you can
Yeah.
carry forth with that.
Because right now,
And thank you,
city
sorry
has a-
Judy, let me finish.
Oh, I'm sorry, I thought you were done.
Thank you, Raphael, for providing all this information, and Craig and Sarah, this is invaluable because we don't want decisions that we make today come back to haunt us next October. Okay, so this helps, I think, us make a clearer decision. It seems to be also one that goes without saying, keeps more of the community at bay, and prevents any major changes like a reconfiguration that gives people sticker shock.
Right.
So-
I would suggest that in terms of the one preschool moving with the sped class to Horace Mann and the other preschool staying at Hawthorne and having them add preschools to Hawthorne, because it also then allows you, Laura, that extra room for potentially prime if you need it. And we're not going backwards. So it keeps that open. So I like that idea.
We have private horse now already.
Yeah.
And
But if you need another class, you
Another
would have
space.
another
To separate.
classroom
I'm
right
not
there
married,
next to it.
yeah, to 2 preschools going over. I
Yeah.
can go either way.
I
And then it
think
gives
so, too.
Mr. Bugby some flexibility if he needs a classroom
Mhm.
down the line.
It
And-
gives you that room for if you need another prime
Well-
classroom, it's right adjacent to where you have prime now.
And we'll look at those
Yeah.
options and
Yeah.
also with the city as well, like there's like operational costs too with having 2 sections in 2 different places. So we'll look at, but we'll come back and make sure.
But they're probably gonna add more to Hawthorne.
hopefully.
I would assume.
Well, we hope if they truly do have a waiting list, which they said that they've had,
They do.
they will now have options on
So it's
space.
really that
And
we're
they'll
gonna
be at Hoffman.
be, they're gonna be
And
moving
it
one
seems
to
like they wanna
as a
add
favor to
another
us,
year
so that we can make sure
Yes.
that we provide a general
Oh,
Whereas before they were doing
Program
3 to
for
4 to
our
5, they wanna do 2 to 3 to 4. So that will be good.
2 will become more of a daycare. Okay, if there is nothing else, thank you, everybody. We will adjourn this study session. We are moving into closed at 3 o'clock, correct?
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you. Colleagues, you have a break. If you want it, I don't know if we can start.
An hour.